Welcome to your weekly Social Jack Influence Factory. Introducing your coaches, Dean DeLisle, Kate Hassett, and Jackson DeLisle.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Influence Factory. Good to have everybody on with us today. Hey, Kate, how you doing?
Hey, good. Happy Wednesday. How are you?
Good. Back from New Mexico.
Yes, I am. How was last week? I haven't even gone and watched the episode yet. I'm so bad.
It was awesome. Actually, Carolyn's coming in the office today. You didn't even know that.
Oh, surprise. I didn't.
Surprise guest. That's where we have a guest on the air, and then they actually walk into the office a week later. So
perfect.
Jackson, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm real good.
You got like both your personalities. You got you in the background with a bow tie on.
Yeah.
And tux. And then you got your sweatshirt hoodie on like a Mark Zuckerberg look. So
yeah, it's just different times. So
that's how it rolls.
Your background just changes week to week. Like it's always something different.
Right.
Yeah. Actually, it changes every 30 seconds.
Oh, well.
Oh, there you go. I see it. All right.
You guys both get the eye roll at this. I'm done. Let's move on.
Okay. Influence Factor, everybody. Welcome. We have a very unique episode today because our guest is caught behind a bad accident. So we're actually going to cover 2019 trends that you must use for your business to become an influencer and on social media. So it's actually very timely that we happen to have this article hot off the presses. And then I know a lot of you follow us on social media. And what do they do to follow us on social media, Kate? What's all that about?
So Twitter, our handle is @GetSocialJack. And then, of course, you can follow the hashtag Influence Factory. You can tweet to any of our previous guests that way, recommend any future guests. We'd be really interested in knowing who we should have on in 2019 as we're talking about the new year. And then also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, we're @SocialJack. So follow us there.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome everybody again from us here in Chicago, and hopefully wherever you're at in the world, you are keeping warm. So anyway, even if you're in the Midwest.
Right.
So don't forget to turn off your cell phones, take some notes, and you'll enjoy some good learning as always. And because we're on the GoToWebinar interface, you can use the mobile app. You can switch to phone call if you want and take us on the road. I know a lot of you do lunchtime listening with us, so appreciate that. Just remember, don't watch the screen and drive at the same time. That's our public service announcement. And of course, we always allow people to engage and win. So real quick, if you could type in, if you could have any car in the world, what type of car would you get? You wouldn't have to make payments. You wouldn't have to pay the insurance. Money's no object. What kind of car would you get? Kate.
I'm very partial to the Lincoln Navigator.
Oh, I used to be a Lincoln Navigator owner for quite a few models.
Really?
So, folks, type that into the questions area. What kind of car would you choose if you could choose to have any car in the world? Jackson's thinking hard. See, nobody knows when I ask these questions what they're going to be, so that's why they look a little bit puzzled. Brett says a Lamborghini. Jackson, what about you?
I think I would do an Audi R8. So,
those are nice cars. What about you, Dean? What's your dream car?
Well, I posted it yesterday. I love that new Mercedes. I don't know if I can even bring it up here, but man, this thing is choice. And Barry Goodman's on the line. I'd love to hear Barry. Come on, what kind of car would you have if you could have any car in the world? We have Riddy on, who's our guest next week, and Sheila's on. So chime in, folks. What kind of car? There you go. How about that thing? Look at this Mercedes. It's like, oh my gosh.
Come on, Kate. That is nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
USA Today wants to show me a bunch of ads first, though, so I'm going to turn them off.
Oh,
but anyway, yes. So anyway, there's so it's always funny when you ask this question, because what I noted on my post yesterday is it really depends where you're at, what chapter you're at in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I actually also would love to have a spare car, and Jackson knows this. I'd just love to have a Jeep where I could take the doors off and the top down and just have the Jeep. So
technically, you could do that on your Jeep. It just the top won't go back on. So it's more of like you have to choose that permanently, but it can be done.
And a little duct tape, right? So there you have it.
Anything's possible, right?
Right. All right. Social Jack members, don't forget to log in. There's always stuff going up every week, sometimes every day. All kinds of forms and worksheets. And we actually have some 2019 worksheets and planning worksheets going up there. So maybe do that. And then Barry says a Yugo. Oh, my God. Is that still a car? And then almost any convertible. So there you go. There you have it. Just not during this time of year, right, Barry? So we have discount codes for everybody, and our LinkedIn social selling fast track courses here. We do have a full course, so hopefully you got in there and got your registration. Many of you had complimentary or heavily discounted at salesjack.net. But if you want to go look out there, you can get on the waiting list and hopefully jump in on the next one. So with that being said, Barry said he would put the heat on in his convertible and still have that top down. So I commend him for that. So, all right. So we're going to do a little different format here today, folks. So those of you are on are very lucky. We have a news article that Jackson found that is very timely. 8 social media tactics to help your business dominate in 2019. So this is your chance to get prepared, ask us questions, and really get up to speed on what's happening. And we're going to cover all kinds of things from social listening to ephemeral content. Yes. So which Kate is a specialist in, we determined.
Wonderful.
So 8 social media tactics for 2019. So those of you that are on with us today, how many of you do some level of social listening? I'm sort of curious about that. And so Kate, one of the things we talk about all the time is we run, I can't even fathom how many accounts we run, but I think you combined with what we have on Joe's side and your side, I think we're around 6,000 posts a month of some sort of content on multiple channels. And so that's the outbound side of the business. But why is listening important?
So really what we're seeing right now as a trend is that people are using social media to do so much of their customer service. And this is something that I really saw at the theme park when I was at Wild Adventures. It was a smaller theme park that was a sister company of some bigger theme parks like Silver Dollar City and Wild Adventures. And so we would always look at the bigger theme parks as, a predecessor of like what we should be doing. And one thing that we saw is that the bigger places like Disney, like even Silver Dollar City, they weren't doing as much listening as they should have been. And so we made it one of our personal goals to always respond to every single comment on social media. And people just love that little extra effort that you give. You're not just looking for the negative reviews and trying to make it right. Of course, we did a lot of that too. When people would complain about rides being down or bad experiences, they take it to social. And so that's where we would make a really good effort to put them in contact with somebody who could help fix their experience, make them happy, try to make them return customers. But people just love those little personal touches of the thank yous. Thank you for visiting. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for checking in with us. Just little things like that. They go a long way. It's part of that humanizing the brand, letting you know that there's somebody behind the Facebook post. And I think that that's really just the most important thing about listening is that people know you're listening,
I want you to know I was listening. So one of the things we talk about with in our personal branding and social selling is we tell you Google your name at least, once a month or more frequently, set that sort of reminder in your calendar on the 1st to just be aware of what's out there. And one thing we tell our clients, and we'll do this with our clients too, is if you can't afford listening tools, it doesn't do as much social listening, but it does more just brand awareness, because one of the things on here is really find out what's being said about your brand. And for a lot of you, your name is your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So Google Alerts is free. You just go to Google Alerts, you just Google it, and you can fill out different phrases like your name, your brand name, and it'll tell you when things are being said about your brand, your name, maybe certain hashtags. You can do that too. And so that's just an easy, cheap, free way to actually listen. Hi, Tracy. Good to see you on. So in doing that, I think it's important for people to listen overall to the internet, and then go to that next level of listening. And sometimes it's just as easy as having your notifications turned on, because Kate, we've looked, I know we use a Social Report. We used to use Pictions, and then unfortunately it went out of business.
Right.
I use a couple of different platforms on Twitter, but you can use your actual social media platforms as a listening tool. So any thoughts on that, Kate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what people kind of tend to confuse with brands and personal brand is that they don't have to do as much listening and they don't have to buy a tool. But if you are somebody that uses LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter to sell, to post thought leadership content, if you are a business influencer, which everyone listening is, you should be listening to your social media. That includes responding to messages. And I know it's funny, I think of you because the most annoying one to you is like the happy anniversary on LinkedIn, the happy birthday, but people are taking the time to engage with you. And even though we know it's an automated, tell this person happy birthday, they still thought of you to send the message. So even responding to those messages, if it's somebody that you would like to talk to or set up a call with, that's a perfect time to respond and say, thank you. Hey, if you want to talk about doing this going forward, those are notifications that you should be listening to and using the right way. So yeah, I love it. Turn on your notifications if you haven't, because as a personal brand, you need to be listening as well.
Yeah, and it's just interesting, So here's a true story with a client. And Kate, I don't even if I told you this, I can't mention any names, but I can tell you afterwards. So as soon as I had one of our clients turn on Google Alerts with their name, and I think Barry, Jimmy, some of the other folks on do some training. How many people on with us today do some sort of training or coaching? So as we look at this, I was having the client just listen for their own name, and lo and behold, they didn't realize that their content was being sold in someone else's package from a talk that they did 10 years prior.
Wow.
In a conference. They took it, they recorded it, they put it in a book, and they sold the audio recording, and they've been selling it. So now there's a lawsuit where they could get $100,000 just for listening to their name on the internet. So Barry, you guys do transition coaching. So we listen on behalf of SVA and yourself, but you should also listen to what's going on, because you might check something out like that. But that wouldn't be bad, It's like so. I'm gonna start looking for my stuff out there, because we have this talk every week. It's like, who's renaming their stuff off of some of my old names? So I catch that all the time, but it's trying to find that evidence. But thanks to my IP attorney who's right next door to me, he's tracking down some of that stuff. So you want to protect yourself. It's not just there's a negative and positive side. Plus, you can also see you might be featured in the news, or somebody might be mentioning you, and now all of a sudden you have an opportunity. So there's a couple different sides to this, but. And then Jackson, you do a ton of video, and I know YouTube has some listening tools built in and things like that. So.
And then you have another opportunity to share with them, like, why did you share this and not tag me in it? Because that's like a social media no, and we still see people doing it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we have augmented reality. So
this one is super cool.
Go for it, man.
So augmented reality is you might have heard of, the AR or the VR, the virtual reality goggles. Well, augmented reality is just adding something to reality that normally wouldn't be there. You've probably seen some, I believe it was Pepsi. I want to say Pepsi did a commercial, like a commercial sort of thing where there was a bus stop and it looked like there was an explosion coming, and it was just one of the panels what looked identical to the street and showed a meteor or something coming and exploding up the bus stop. But it was just a screen on the side of the bus stop. It was very cool the way they did it. But now Facebook is looking to move into augmented reality. So you've seen, advertisements, big, large companies doing it. And then also they have the business cards that you can create. You have to download software, and it kind of at this point is just another thing to download. And so it's at a weird point where is it going to be very useful, or is it going to be just another thing to have on your phone? But it's a very cool way to, let's say you have your business card, you're showing it on, and then you can just look at it through your camera lens. And now you can click on the links, you can click on profile pictures, connect right from there on all social platforms. Very cool stuff. But it does take a lot of programming, so there is that.
Yeah, I was thinking how we have our logos on here. So the way I understood it is like what you said. I could take somebody's business card and literally hold it in front of my camera, almost like a QR code. But there's a level of intelligence in here that is all of a sudden putting a new dimension to the things that your phone is looking at, right?
And then they can pop out and different things. So basically what it does is it allows you to have a business card that is like little information on the card and also saving space. But then once you open up your phone and do that, the only problem with that is you have to have the specific app. That's all something that I assume will be smoothed out over the next couple of years.
Snapchat's going to have it in no time. I can tell they're going to go
after it. Thinking.
Yeah. So them and Facebook are always battling. So Kate, we deal with a lot of realtors and folks at that level that have visual extensions of what they do, or 3D extensions. And we all know that virtual tours and those things have been around, but wouldn't that be cool just to have like a business card of like here at 180 Homes, and boom, you press it. Next thing you know, you're walking through a house.
Right.
But that would be like virtual reality. So virtual reality is going on the two, like you'll see the rides at some amusement parks and things like that. They have the VR goggles, or you can buy them at home, and then that is just, it blocks out all sensors, all senses except for what you're seeing and what you're hearing. You have the headphones, you have this. And it's just that's your virtual reality. Augmented reality is taking what already exists and then adding something to it through your camera lens, through things like that. And that's why it's very cool the way that Facebook is testing the AR advertisements for their news feed. So this is going to be super cool, something you might want to play around with and get used to, because this is showing that it's probably going to be playing a bigger role in social media in the next year, if not the next couple years.
Yeah. So what about like training and coaching? Barry said they do transition coaching. They do a level of training. Soon to have a massive academy up on the internet. And as we look at this, I think of how does this apply to education, or do you guys see it playing into a level of education of, because we're all about experiential learning, which means in our classes we have you do something right away, and we do accelerated learning and micro learning. I'm wondering how AR could play into those of us that are in the education space.
Well, one thing we know is that once Facebook gets their hands on it, they're going to try to sell it to all businesses. You know, they make advertising really easy. So once they put this into their marketing plans, they're going to try to sell it to everybody. So I'm sure that they're going to be one of the first ones to kind of manipulate it and customize it, like for smaller businesses or coaching businesses or whatever. But I could see this playing a huge role in education because it's going to be able to bring things right to your phone, right to your desktop. It's there. And then like Jackson said, it's your reality and it's just how it's going to change a little bit. So I could really see this being the new wave for education in general, for college classes, for everything like that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, think about a textbook. You know what I mean? You could provide more information than what the textbook is allowing space for. So they published this book, and it's got, you know, all the information. And so they say, you know, for more information, you can have stuff that says, for more information, click here. Yeah, and about the author section, if you really want to get into it, about the publishing company, things like that. Mm-hmm. And
put on your goggles, go meet the author.
The only problem with that is you'd have to actually buy the book, which is my least favorite thing about any education. So
it's all on the internet.
That's what I'm saying.
All right. So anyway, so I'm sort of curious in the audience, how do you see this applying to your business? So it's always good for us to have these discussions and to share how we're seeing it, but we're also curious, how do you see it applying to your business? And remember, we're talking about the future, 2019. So this is our time traveling episode for those of you that are curious what kind of episode this is. So Kate, this is like, okay, so we're going to spend a little extra time on here. Micro influencers. Remember, those of you that are new, you're all influencers. I'm not even going to ask the question. We know we've already blessed you all as influencers because you are. So micro influencers technically are people with 10,000 followers or less by definition. But in our world, business micro influencers, those of you that have been to our Social Jack site, note that our academy and our membership and our programs are all about making you the very best influencer. And that's our commitment on the Influence Factory, is that you come in here and it's a playground, a sandbox for you to learn things, try things to increase your level of influence. Well, Kate is our influencer manager, and that means we take influencers in all the time. So I'm just going to walk you through the steps so that you can see where you're at in your journey, or maybe what for 2019 that you need to evaluate as part of becoming an influencer. One of the main things is to set your goals and objectives. So this is one of the first things when we do an intake. And yes, Kate, some people fill out the forms and sometimes they don't. We have a lot of rule breakers as influencers that come to our doorstep.
Don't get me started.
I know, they try to shortcut the system, but we love them all, right? Equally as much. But the idea is that you have to understand, and that's why this is a good time to talk about this, because do you have a clear vision of what you want to become in 2019? And we don't just ask you for like 1 year, we ask you 5 years, and then sometimes we go into 10 years if we know. So I'm just curious of everybody that's on with us today, do you have a clear vision for who you want to become in 2019? Just give us a simple yes or no, or if you want, you can type that in. So Kate, what do you think? You know, we hear a lot about this, and I think one of the cool things about what we do is we ask a lot of personal questions along with business questions. And I think people sometimes put these in different buckets. They say, well, these are my business goals and these are my personal goals, but they don't look at it as a whole thing.
Right.
You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things I want to encourage everybody to do, and these worksheets are literally in Social Jack. Hopefully you've logged in and gotten the worksheets as you're working through this. But think about what 2019 looks like. So I only had one person say that they know what 2019 looks like for them. So we want to encourage you to know that you have this pretty much mapped out about who you want to become and how that ties into your business or where you work and things like that. So goals and objectives are probably the first thing that we want to make sure you do. Then what we
Yeah.
do is we look at like who you are, like where are you at in the process. We do a current state analysis, which means, okay, so you want to get here, but where are you at today? So of course it's the holidays and I'm stepping on the scale, so I'm like thinking about how does this relate to like, once a week checking in with your trainer, going to the gym and that sort of thing. And I think about the fact that in our coaching, we check in where you're at today and where you want to go, but we do regular check-ins with you. And I think this is important for you to do for yourself too, is to have some level of commitment of your influence. How are you growing? How are you building? And then Kate, now we get into the wheelhouse of where you come in terms of creating that persona. So do you have any tips or thoughts for those that haven't been through the program or maybe taken one of our workshops? What are probably some of the most important things about creating who you are once you know where you want to go?
I think what it always comes down to is mapping out the significant events in your life. I think a lot of people just think of their story, like you said, as being separate, like their personal and business professional stories being separate. And they're saying, I went to this college, I graduated this degree, I started working here. But what about those personal moments in your life that really shape you? Not just the good things, the graduating college, the meeting of the goals, but the bad things, the things you had to overcome. And we work with influencers a lot who just have tremendous parts of their story that they've never told. And maybe they've just said, oh, I didn't think this was important, or I've never wanted to tell this. Like one of our clients right now, he wasn't born in America. He, immigrated as a young child. And so just how he's kind of always analyzed like American culture versus other culture and how that helps him do his job is just amazing. And it's something that he kind of overlooked and has never really used as part of his personal story. So just things like that. I think a great thing to do is kind of map out where you are and look at where you want to go and kind of some key things that have helped you get there. And that's something that a lot of people overlook. And you could be missing a huge chunk of your story, a huge chunk of your personal brand and not even know it.
Well, and I think an important thing is to also get vulnerable. Those of you, when I tell my story of, just being on the streets and the things that I've survived, it took me a long time to come to grips with telling people about that. And it still is tough, because it brings up, parts that I don't want to return to, but it did inspire me and help. The failures that I've had or the falls that I've taken have helped be turning points to actually get us to where we're all at today with Social Jack and Forward Progress. So then I when I'm talking with my coach, it's like, hey, this is the part that people need to hear. This is the part that you need to tell so that people know that it's okay to fail. It's okay to be real. And I think people leave that out in their stories because they want to have this persona that they're all put together and all that. But yet I think there's a deeper connection. And I think the audience that's live with us and listening to recordings will agree is like the minute they figure out that it wasn't all a bed of roses, it was real, is more of a connecting point than thinking like you're this, pedestal based expert out there.
Right.
And that's what I love about our interview process. And, Kate and I, from time to time, we just did this again, we'll rework and say, what if we ask this question? Or what if we ask it differently? And we're always evolving in that part of asking because it draws out the best of who each person is. And think about that. And then also, I think you said a key thing. It's like you mentioned graduating or whatever the degree is, but it's like there's so many other what we call turning points or pivotal points in your story that are important to people. They want to resonate with the fact that you started off here and went there. So, Kate, what was your first job?
Oh my gosh. I've been working since I was like born.
I know, same here.
I was, I like babysat or a swim coach, I guess, was my first thing. I was like a swim coach.
Yeah. Jackson, what was your first job?
I was working for Forward Progress, but I
at trade shows collecting business cards.
Yeah, it's a junior entrepreneurial
Right.
position. It was, it's on my LinkedIn. So
So everybody that's on with us today, I love to hear what was your first job, because what's interesting is the view you had of the world and what you wanted to do at your first job was so different. Joe said cutting the grass. I've been there. I did that. Brett, busboy. That was one of my first jobs where I thought that's what I was going to do, because I started off delivering newspapers. If you ever did that, that's a humbling job. Waking up at 4 a.m. And back then you had to wrap all the papers and stuff them and fold them. And then you had to ride your bike half in the dark while there was a sheet of paper, making sure you got them to the houses that were paying the newspaper service.
Sounds horrible.
But Barry, what was your first job? Jimmy, I'm sort of curious about some of the other folks on with us. Tracy. So let's see. Jimmy said got paid $20 to play drums at New York Bagel and Bailey at 13. That's awesome, dude. at the age of 12, he got paid $20 to play the drums. Shoot, I had to wait till I was 16 to get paid to play the drums. That sort of tells you how I was. Oh, Barry said selling fresh eggs door to door.
Wow.
Look, you sort of do that now. You sell, businesses, and you hatch them into their next level of exit planning. We ought to use that, Barry. I like that as part of your story. in the early days of egg sales, door to door. So I thought I was going into hospitality, which is actually talked about on my LinkedIn profile. But that's really when I started learning about business social networking and the value of a business. And I thought I was going to open a restaurant. And lo and behold, I meet the CEO of Merrill Lynch in our restaurant, and I started helping him cater parties. And next thing you know, 6 months later, I'm going to school. I'm a sophomore in college. I'm 19. And I said, Mr. Bradley, what would it take for me to work in the board of trade with all you guys, on all those computers? Because, all I knew was punch cards from college. And he said I could start in 2 weeks, and it changed my life. I went from thinking I was going to open a restaurant to being in the technology world. And I think all of us have had those moments where we started down this direction and then went the other direction. So
Kate, I've had a few. I think I changed my college major a few times. So I had a couple of those moments.
That seemed, how many other people changed their college major? I always think, or maybe you're doing something completely different than what you went to school for. What was your first major, your first pick?
My first one, it's so funny. My first one was media and communications, because I was going to be a sports broadcaster. That's what I wanted to do. And then I walked into my first media class, and it was a lecture class, a very large class. And the teacher, who ended up being one of my peers later on the radio station, he was a sports broadcaster in Valdosta. He told me, if you're just here to work on ESPN, you might as well change your major, because they only accept 4 people, and you're never going to get a job. And then I switched and I tried a couple other different things, and I ended up right back in media. And I co-hosted a sports show with him, which is just so funny now, because he didn't even remember me, but it was cool.
Yeah. And I always think about, so there's a couple things here that I want people to take away. It's part of your story. Your story is instrumental. It's important. It's who you are. It's who people want to get to know. It's the moment that when they know more about you, it changes the relationship and the connection that they have. So make sure you don't hold back in 2019. Tell the whole story. Tell the best parts. Don't hold back. Mm-hmm. And again, those worksheets, if you log into Social Jack, are all there. They can interview. We suggest, if you don't do it with us, do it with a peer, somebody that you like. Maybe a glass of wine, but not a bottle of wine. Make sure you're in the right frame of mind.
We hear that a lot from our workshops, that's people's favorite part, when you practice telling your story to someone else, and the parts that they get excited about or ask questions about, you're onto something good. Yeah,
you just read the other person, and when they light up, you're like, wow, I didn't know that about you. Get that stuff into your profile, get it into your summary, get those parts of your best self out there. And then the next section is build the ideal network. I wouldn't be where I am right at this moment if I wasn't blessed with an amazing network. Jimmy, Barry, a lot of you folks that are on, Kate, everybody that's part of my network is really who I've, has helped me to who I've become. So as you look at this, we have something called social teaming. If you Google it, there's a ton of references. It has network science, social and emotional intelligence. It has so many cool things that help you build a network, but it isn't just a one and done thing. Kate's team does something, and there's a reference on here, which I was laughing on 2019 after the micro influencers. Here. Indirect messaging. One of the things they talk about is having a direct conversation with people. There's a whole strategy around having a direct conversation with the people in your network. And I think people get into this mode where we're broadcasting, they're talking about videos up here and user generated content. But I think people forget about having a conversation. We just did a webinar on this, Jackson, 2 weeks ago. It's up on one of our pages, but I know it's in Social Jack, I think even on the free version. And you don't need to log in or anything, but I encourage you. It tells you what to say to other people. And it just blows me away that we have so many people in our universe that have come and coached and trained with us, and we assume they know how to have a conversation, because when we're networking with them, they know how to have a conversation. Like when we were at LinkedIn Local, people were having good conversations. And when I started talking to them, and I go, what's the first thing you say to somebody on LinkedIn? And there were people even in that universe of LinkedIn Local that, like, I don't know, I get really scared sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is an epidemic. We should help more people do this. So we've come up with some scripts and dialogues. But isn't it funny that we know what to say to 20 million people in a post when we get to that point, but then we don't know the one-on-one conversation? Does anybody else get that way that's on with us today? But Kate, what do you think about that? Because you're in a whole different generation than I am, and you've grown up with a lot of the technology. But what's your perspective on that?
We hear this a lot from our clients and from other people that don't really know, but I think it goes right back to what this picture says, is just like share information. And I think that that's something that we overlook so much. It's like, oh, well, if I'm going to, message somebody directly, I need to be like selling to them or setting up an appointment or this, that, and the other. But some of the most successful scouting and drafting we do in the whole department is inviting people to events, sharing information. We do it on Dean's behalf. We do it on the company's behalf, mine and Jackson's. And one thing we really did for LinkedIn Local this time around was, because Chicago's ramping up this event, we're actually, for a big city, we're kind of behind in other cities' LinkedIn Local events. So we took the events list from the past event and we split it up between co-hosts, and we messaged people directly and added them. And so, everyone was amazed by my message, but it was as simple as, hi, I know you came to the last LinkedIn Local event. I'm one of the new co-hosts. I'd love to tell you about the new event coming up. Let me know if you want to connect and chat more. And I got 100% response. Everyone was like, yes, tell me what's coming up. They didn't feel like I was selling to them, trying to sell them a ticket. They felt like I was genuinely connecting to them and asking them to come to an event. And so I saw tremendous feedback from that.
Yeah, and I think it's because we set the tone and the framework and the energy behind that someone else did it, and it's okay for you to do it. And so that's why, we encourage you that if you're stuck or you're not sure what to say on social, especially in these direct conversations, I just put the link out to everybody. So hopefully you saw that. Should be in your chat or in the questions area. I'm not sure where some of these things go, but I put it out there. And it's like convert new LinkedIn connections to appointments, 5 easy messages. What do you say? And then I think in here we also give you another dozen other things to say. Right. But what's resonating with everybody? So are you in a position, and just type this into the questions area, where you feel stuck? Because it helps us to know what to develop for you. Because when we're one-on-one with our clients or we're in a training, we get to know what it is for them. But we love to hear from you in terms of things that you get stuck on. Because what's interesting, Kate, so are there any places like I know you direct message in LinkedIn. Do you DM in Twitter and Instagram and some of the other places, or where do you?
No, not really. I mean, Facebook is just strictly with like my personal network, like friends, things I want to share with
Facebook's
them.
a good call.
But for business, it's mostly LinkedIn. I don't do a lot of Twitter either.
Yeah, one of the big things we saw, and this was a couple years ago, we were talking about the Gatorade campaign where they were direct messaging through video in Facebook. And I think this is also a missed art. Joe, we were talking about this in our weekly meeting about having a way to shoot a video, to start a conversation, to direct message people, but not necessarily to sell them something, but to give them something of value, to coach them, to train them. So Barry said he does transition coaching. Might be interesting to hit every small business in Chicago about how to think about their business differently based on what it's worth. What's your business worth? Maybe having a short, cool little video. So I think there's a lot of cool things that you can do, and hopefully you're resonating with us in terms of 2019 as you're making your marketing plans and going through some things, just what it could be for you.
Another thing too, another way to use video and direct messaging that Jessica Phillips from Now Marketing shared with us on Influence Factory a couple months ago was checking in with clients. LinkedIn brought this video feature and everybody was kind of like, how do I use it? And she specifically uses Facebook even for business, but you can do it on LinkedIn. Check in with a client. Hey, hope your 2018 was really good. I just wanted to check in with you, see how you were doing, see if you wanted to plan for 2019, talk about our next steps, whatever. And that's really, really a good way to humanize the brand and use LinkedIn video for what it's supposed to be used for.
Right. So this streaming video thing, what is this?
What is it?
You're doing it right now.
It's live video. It's live in the moment video. So, the difference between putting up your camera, recording a promotional video to talk about something going on in your life or an event is hitting the Facebook Live button or the Instagram Live button or jumping on a GoToWebinar and turning your camera on. It's that live. Yes, Zoom. It's the live human video of like what's happening right now.
Yeah,
Jackson,
and it's
I was gonna say Jackson Price sees more of this than anyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I find that streaming video, like they said, in this article they say, there's also the exciting potential for surprises and unexpected moments to occur, which is
like when your guest gets in a car accident and can't. Well, she didn't get in a car accident, but
he was stuck.
Right.
Yeah. So like things like that, it humanizes the brand, shows that not everyone's perfect. And I think that is a very cool thing because it also allows the user to feel closer to the people on the video or, in the recording. And that's the biggest thing. Like you see these influencers that are connected to this brand and they're like, hey, I just wanted to take a minute and talk to you guys. Like that's the feeling that it creates. And I think that's the best way to, engage your attendees, your viewers, all your followers with a live video is having, your influencer, the face of your company, anyone within the company who's like a micro influencer. I think that is the ideal way to engage that. So
and I think too, Jackson, is that one thing that we have two conference calls today on different technology, and you were just showing me just so everybody's aware of what exists. So we're very one to many in this, that we're with you. You're on GoToMeeting, but then the minute this hangs up, Jackson distributes it on Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, a whole bunch of places. SoundCloud. Did you like that?
Yeah.
I actually remembered. After hearing it for a year, I finally remembered most of them. YouTube. So it automatically, it gets distributed out there. What's interesting is we have a newer technology that we're looking at where when we go to stream, it automatically streams into Facebook, it streams into YouTube, it streams into Instagram. And those are different audiences that we can now reach, almost like, when you have like HBO and it's on Dish and it's on Xfinity and it's also on Hulu or, I don't know even know if Hulu does live. Shows you what I know. I binge watch on Netflix. I don't think any of that's life. But the idea here is that you have different distribution opportunities with your business and your content, and it doesn't have to be overdone.
Absolutely. And a great way to think about it is when Dean talks about, if you're just thinking about jumping into live video, if you haven't done a lot of it yet, is when Dean talks about how every social media post is like an event. So a live streaming post is like a live event, the excitement, the build up, when you get off a live event, when you've been speaking, when you've been attending and networking, it's a just different kind of excitement. And so that's really what you can portray with live streaming.
Yeah. And Joe Carnes just told us that Hulu, he is the king of internet television. If anybody needs to know what to do at the lowest cost, Joe always knows. And he says Hulu has a live option now. So now I'm up to speed. But we've done whole episodes on streaming video. And then UGC. So Kate, thoughts on user generated content? Some people get confused on this.
Yeah, so user-generated content is just one of those things that people say is like the best because it's practically free, and we see that a lot. It encourages people to use their content to talk about the brand, to just kind of reinforce, and it's back to humanizing the brand. It's you posting LinkedIn articles, it's you posting blog articles, it's you opening up your camera and recording a video, and that's one thing that I really like to talk to my clients about as they're trying to break into video and how we can use that as user generated content or break into blogs. It's like, what's your most commonly asked question? What's the one thing you wish your clients knew about your business? Right. What's the one thing you wish somebody knew? What's your rant of the day? Because those are important questions too, the highs and lows of your job. And that's great user generated content that backs up not only your personal brand, but your company brand that's essentially free.
Yeah, it's and like Kate said, and Jackson was talking about, we take this show and we're even looking at options next year. We're doing some recalibrating and things of chopping the news up into segments. I mean, you guys tell us, would that be useful if we took the news and gave you like small, more frequent nuggets of news on our platform or ways that you could get that quickly? Because I love the news that we come up with, and it almost is like there's so much going on, it's tough to cover. And I'm thinking that we separate that from our interviews and things like that, because heck, I think alone we could have one heck of a news show. Look at, we're covering a whole article here. And I mean, I know it's a 2019 planning, but there's so much going on in digital that it's crazy. Between digital and mobile, it's like you could talk about this 5 hours a day and have an entire channel dedicated to it, which I know some are, but it's pretty interesting. But yeah, think about what you can do in terms of user generated content. That's the stuff that takes off on its own. Once you build a community, you build a following, you start having a conversation, you're approachable, people feel connected to you. There's nothing like it. We monitor this day in and day out. In fact, in our weekly meeting, Kate, the number one thing, we do a ton of content for our clients, but the minute I told somebody this morning on a web call, I said, the minute you engage with us, it's going to change your world. I said, you don't have to do but a couple of minutes a week. You tell us what your tolerance is. We put a map together and tell you what to do when. We make it so easy, and we make it just a few clicks. And the minute you join us, the whole world changes. And Absolutely. That's the game changer. That's why we continue to do coaching and training. He goes, well, you do coaching and training. I know, I was in that business. So you can generate business from that. Well, some of that's true. Yeah, we do get a lot of business from doing it, but my parents were teachers. I love coaching and training, and I do love the reward of people learning. But I'm telling you, it's constantly generates new content. It's fresh. It's cool. I love people learning. Is everybody learning today? Can everybody just chime in and make us feel heard and seen and say, I'm learning so much from you guys, or maybe you're not. And then tell us that too, and we'll change things. But the idea here is that is that about as authentic as it gets, Kate, right?
Definitely.
But anyway, UGC is the way to go. So make sure you're doing that. So thanks, Brett. Oh my gosh, chatbots. What the hell is this? Jackson.
So
I'm
chatbots
afraid now. I
are
feel like it's like that movie iRobot or something.
so chatbots are really cool because let's say you want to send out messages to like your LinkedIn network.
Okay.
So let's say you have, over 500 connections. Let's say you're like Dean and you have over 10,000 connections. And those 10,000 connections, you can put in search parameters. And, for some of these, and you just put in those search parameters, it'll find the people in your network. You can, be like, I want to message these people in my network, let's say event marketers, event planners, event marketers, things like that. And then, this is the message I want it to send to them. And then it'll sit there and it'll go through and send all of them those messages. But that's the thing, is it's like you don't have to sit there and type out each message or even copy and paste each message. And, it cuts down time, because you're putting the information in once and then it handles it from there. It's basically just like an automating system. So this is very cool and a very easy way to send messages through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There's tons of them out there.
Is this different? I know Joe's on the line too, but is this different from the website chat things that we see? So this is more chatbots in social media where they're more automated. And I know we use some different tools and things like that, but it's almost like drip marketing or email marketing through chat to your social network. Is that how I understand it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you've gone to any like Facebook pages recently, you might have noticed that a lot of people are enacting even just like the base level, where as soon as you click on a page, it's like, do you want to send us there's like a message that pops up. Do you want to send us a message? Do you want to check out ours? Do you have any questions? And you can kind of customize it. So people are using it to do some like social media listening, to talk to their customer base a little more personally, stuff like that.
Holy smokes. Can you believe we're out of time already? So everybody, first of all, before we close out here, I'm wondering who's going to win. So hopefully you've typed in, but type in the one thing. So we covered, just really quick, rapid fire here. Holy smokes, don't get dizzy. Social listening. Are you going to do some different social listening? Are you going to do augmented reality, AR? Are you going to do more about your micro influence in the world? Do a little streaming video and then create some user-generated content out of that streaming video? A little direct messaging, having direct conversations, or using chatbots to put a little more automation behind it. What's the one thing you're going to do differently going forward from this webcast or listening to this podcast from this moment? If you're live with us, type that in right now, because you still have a chance to win. All right. Kate, what about you? You always learn something new too out of this, right?
Yeah, always. I think that's just kind of like a reminder as you're looking into the future, but I'm definitely interested in learning more about augmented reality, just from a perspective of knowing what I'm talking about when I read it, because sometimes you have to remind yourself, even when you read an article, of like, what is that? So I'm really interested to see where that goes next and how Social Jack can use it.
Oh, Kate, I'm sorry. I forgot about your specialty.
Oh.
Ephemeral content.
Ephemeral content. So ephemeral content is content that goes away eventually. So these are the Snapchat stories, the Instagram stories, and a lot of people say it's the strongest and the weakest part of their social media strategy, and they don't really know how to use it. So in my expert opinion, as Dean said, this is the best content to use. That's the humanizing content. It's the what you're doing. It's the when I bring the camera in and I Snapchat story the interns and how hard they're working, or that they're decorating the office for Christmas, stuff like that. It's a great way to humanize the brand. And then if you're not so sure about it, it disappears.
And do you know the neuroscience behind that, why it works?
Probably has to do with the fact that we have, the attention span of goldfish, right?
No, it's called loss aversion. How many people know about loss aversion? That's why gambling is so popular, because if you put the coin in, it's going to hit in that moment, right? So we don't want to lose the opportunity. So the story in Snapchat is so addictive because it's like if you don't catch it in the moment, it's going to be gone.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
deep, huh? I'll have to bring some of our PhDs on for that conversation.
Yeah. It's like when my friends are like, did you see so-and-so's Snapchat story? And I'm like, no, what was on it?
Loss aversion. How many people on with us know about the psychology of loss aversion? That's a whole different episode. We'll bring one of our doctors on to cover that. That's also for sales. It works for sales. So Jackson, bottom line, what did you get out of today's session?
Well, my favorite one was obviously the streaming because that's the majority of what I do. But I really like the augmented reality. You know me, I love the technology, technological advancements running into 2019 and seeing where things take us. So augmented reality is probably the biggest thing that I'm going to look more into after this episode. So,
and I don't need special glasses for augmented reality, right? I can do it without.
You augment your own reality daily.
True that. I know. What are you guys going to do?
Couldn't pass up that joke.
I know. All right, Kate, our guest next week. Who is this?
Yeah, Ronnie Swice is the CEO of Attic Salt and a keynote speaker. He's going to tell us about some personal branding from company standpoints. He's got a lot to say, and we're really excited to have him on.
Yeah, and we're sorry we didn't have Michelle. She was stuck behind, but she is going to get rescheduled along with Matt Damon and some other folks that are coming up that just couldn't make it through today's traffic in LA. And that's just the way it works sometimes. You get out of that LAX, you just can't get anywhere and you can't get to the podcast. So we'll figure all that out for the next episode. And don't forget, as we tweet your questions, right? So we love when you tweet with us because it gets you in front of our network and it shows you as a thought leader as you converse with us. So please hit us on all channels. And remember, if you do want to learn more about influencer development program, we built this for you to become an influencer. You can either take the training by just jumping on socialjack.com and joining the membership there, and you can take all the training you can consume. Or we have a 90-day sprint program where we take you from zero to hero or wherever you're at to wherever you want to go in 90 days. And you come in the door, we build your story, build your network, build your social media, coach you, train you, and then we put you out there and you're a rock star. So in 90 days from soup to nuts, I think they say, or something like that. Kate, do you have a saying for that? Because I sure don't.
I would just say start to launch. That's what I always say, but
start to launch. I love it.
I don't know about soups or anything like that. That was over my head.
I think soup to nuts. Where the heck did that come from? Does anybody know the origin of that?
I don't know.
So anyway, if you do want to follow Michelle, and then she will be back on with us, there's her handle. But we always encourage you to connect to us individually. And so, Jackson, did we have a winner today? Who is our engagement winner for our Starbucks gift card?
Yes, we have Barry Goodman.
Got the front door. Barry doesn't drink coffee. He said, give it to me. Barry, congratulations for being the most engaged. And he says complicated, right? He goes, he doesn't quite know. Step up his engagement and understand possibilities. You're never too old to learn. That's what he said in there. That's what he meant to say. He goes, tell the story. Yeah, just keep telling the story, man. We all have a great story. So hopefully each and every one of you learned a ton as we did. So thank you for being on. And this was totally, we had to switch that. He said, does Starbucks sell scotch or whiskey? The gift card's not that big. So, but congratulations for winning. Everybody congratulate Barry.
Yay.
Anyway, with Social Jack and the Influence Factory, you always win because you learn something new to develop your influence. And we'll send out a post email here with all the links. So watch your inbox, or if it falls into spam, make sure you whitelist it and get it out of the junk and put it into the mainstream because you always learn something. And we invite you to share this with your people, with your team. So make sure you do that. Mm-hmm. And those of you that are signed up for the class, that starts tomorrow already, doesn't it? The social selling class.
I think we have a few spots left. So if you still want to get in, let us know.
All right. Can always squeeze one or two more in, and it's all virtual anytime, and it's all recorded. Absolutely. All right, everybody, from all of us here to all of you out there, We will see you online with your magical influence. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.